All right, all you wonderful people out there, happy Thursday. It's so good to see your faces. We got an incredibly special one today. We have the legendary, most incredible human here, Oskar Johansson. And let me just break this down before we go into this. I'm just going to paint a picture for this to start today. Remember back in the day, we saw Kai Lenny ride this beautiful wave on a foil, pump out the back, and he caught another wave. And everybody was like mind blown. Like this just changed the world. Okay. So let's just jump forward to right now, Oskar, who's on the call joining us for this incredible live show because he literally did that, pumped out the back of the wave for 2 hours and 46 minutes nonstop. So if anybody's questioning what can go down, this
Yeah,
is it. So
he's actually about to catch a wave right now, and we are gonna do the entire live while he's pumping.
How good would that be?
no,
Oh no.
so Oskar, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on your world record prone foil, longest ever up riding around. I mean, this just opens the door for everybody for what is possible. So you just literally dropped that rock in and said, here's what's possible in our world today. So thank you so much. And we're excited to dive into this one.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's so funny because that Kai video was one of the videos that got me into foiling. It was I remember watching it and just going like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
this is what I got to do. And it was the same thing at that time. Like that foil he was on to do 11 waves on that was ridiculous. You know, I got to ride it as one of my sort of first foils, and linking 3 waves was hard. Even the idea of 4 waves was out of sight. I was just like, it's not even possible. Like, how is this kid doing it? And then to be, a couple years later now, and it's just like we've gone from 11 waves to over 2 hours. I mean,
How many waves do you think you caught in that session?
we think it was over 200.
200 waves.
Yeah.
That's like more waves. Well, that's for sure more waves than I caught last year, would be my guess.
The time you have on foil doing those long runs, there's so much that you just constantly learn. And it's funny, like the more time you spend on foil, the more you learn. But you do a run like that, and I swear there's still 3 new things I learned. Like it doesn't matter how good you get, you just keep learning. There's little things that improve, increase your efficiency, all of that. It's wild.
So, I mean, we are like jumping right into it, and we will go back to like how it all started. But I have a question that I cannot wait to ask right now. Is how did your progression go? Like, because the previous what was the previous record like?
An hour 7 minutes, Adam Bennett's. Yeah.
An hour 7 minutes. So, like, did you like wait for like did you beat that record and then wait to like totally like destroy it, or like did you go from like 45 minutes to like 2 hours and 45 minutes? Like, how did that happen? Because you would think like you would actually beat it by like, I don't know, few minutes before you like destroy it. Like, how did that happen?
So I got to the point where I knew I was at about an hour. I'd done it once with the watch, and it sort of separated the waves into 3, and I kind of added them up. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty close to an hour now. Like, and that was kind of my goal. I was like, all right, I'll hit an hour. But then it sounds strange, but you get to that point, it's sort of, you're not as worried about the length of time. You kind of go, all right, I've done the hour. Well, don't quite know what's next. And Adam sort of publicized that he'd done an hour 7 minutes and kind of put the challenge out there. And I saw a few other guys having a go at it, and I knew that I was like, I've done an hour before and I'm now in decent shape. I should be able to have a crack at it. And it wasn't until the night before I hadn't done anything over probably half an hour for months. And I just went, all right, I'll set up what I think I'm going to ride if I have a crack at it. And I just had a go at it. And I did 45 minutes the night before. And it was, I don't think my heart rate it was just quite flatlined. It was easy.
So at the end of the 45 minutes, did you like stop because you wanted to stop, or did you fall? Or?
I had the idea. I was like, all right, I'll have a go, because I think there wasn't enough light the night before. So I was like, I'll just have a go, just dial things in, see how I feel. And I just stopped. I got to 45 minutes. I was like,
I could easily kind of just like going. A warm up or something, like just like feeling good.
He was
I
just
regretted it the next
like
morning heavily.
digging inside to just go, yeah, I can just blow the doors off everybody. That's what he was doing. So you went
Yeah.
to bed.
It was
Oh,
funny. I only told my girlfriend the night before. I said, "Oh, there's a world record thing. Like, I'm thinking about having a crack at it tomorrow morning." And she's like, "Oh, what's the record?" I was like, "No." She's like, "What do you think you can do?" And I was like, "I really want to do an hour 15. Like, blow the door out of this and like really be like, yeah, this is my stamp on it." Like, and then I was like, even an hour 30. Like, we'll see maybe that's possible. I had no idea, and it wasn't. I hit the first hour and was like, we're not even close. Like, but it was the same thing. I just underprepared. Like, you're in a wet. I rode a 3-2 wetsuit. It, sun came out. It was warm, and it was just sweating. It was overheating. I don't know,
you
water.
didn't
No
like
nutrition.
zip it down while you were foiling. Come on, I mean, you have all the time in the world, right? Come on.
That was actually I was like, all right, I'll grab it. But then I was using the GoPro to go into my chest zip wetsuit, and I was like, where am I going to put the GoPro? I was like, I can put it down my pants. I was like, if I lose, I was like, you know what? Let's just keep it simple. I was like, and even at that stage, even at an hour, I was like, all right, maybe I'll get to an hour and a half. It was just never that I'm going to go this long. It was always that, like, surely my legs are going to give up in the next 20 minutes or so. So I was like, oh, don't worry, something else will give way before that. And so I just never did, and I regret it. I wish. Oh, the heck! You even see, I think on my Instagram, the last video, you just see the sweat stains just started coming through, and yeah, no.
Okay, so you hit an hour. You knew it was easy. You knew you blew the record. Then what was your mindset?
That was the hard thing, was to have goals and to stay focused. Like, it's quite, you're the whole time you're conscious of how high you are on the mark. You're so focused and in the moment, but having that kind of, you're in pain. Like, as much as I say it's easy, I felt good at that stage. You're still, every pump out, your heart rate's just going up, 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 and then you're just trying to recover up. Like, it's just like doing intervals at a footy field. You just run on one side, have a quick rest, other side, have a quick rest, and just sprinting them. So it's not like it's comfortable at any stage. It's a lot of pain. But as you sort of, your mind, you really need to have that goal, that kind of next. So first it was Adam. I sort of said with the video, I was like, all right, let's just check in every 15, 20 minutes. And I got to the first 40 minutes. I hadn't checked in, and I was like, all right, yeah. All right, we've got an hour coming up in 20. And I was like, all right, focus on that. Got to the hour. I was like, all right, Adam's in another 6 or 7 minutes. Get to that. And then it was like, once I got past that, it was sort of, you're just making goals up in your head. So it was like, all right, let's get to an hour and a half. Let's get to 2 hours. And once I got to the 2 hours, things went pretty dark. I could really feel, legs were just starting to cramp. I was losing too much fluid. So it was actually I chatted to the editor of Tonic magazine, and he'd done a 2 hour 33 marathon. And for some reason, that number just popped in my head. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get to Jack's time. And it was just that always finding goals. And I think after I got the 2 hours 33 that he had, it was really difficult to motivate myself. And it was just, you go to such a dark place in your mind where everything, you're just pushing every pump out. It's like the bottom of every pump is just like trying to get off the legs before they cramp. And it was just like, and it was, so that last 15 minutes felt like an hour. That was and I just didn't have a goal after that. And then,
so now, like, there is a lot of like similarities. I mean, this is like fairly new type of, nobody has done it. So you are like exploring like new territories, but this kind of effort has been done in other sports. So I think the really interesting part is like, there is a lot that you could learn from that type of effort that's being done in other sports, like how to like, sustain it, how to push it. Because obviously like going that long without drinking any water, without refueling, right now that's kind of like, that was a limiting factor, but you were also like not expecting that it would be like that long. So now, next time, what's the limit? Like, what if it could be like 5 hours, and then you kind of like have like a crossing, you have your like your water in the bag with a small hose, you can drink,
I'm calling it out. 24 hours. He's going through the night. This is it. It's happening. I'm telling you, people.
Headlamp
right here.
light,
24 hours.
spotlight on the beach, and
honestly,
endurance
foiling. it's on.
I mean, that's like ultra foiling. You know, we have
Yeah.
like ultra running where you go like 100 miles and stuff.
Ultra
I
foiling.
I do think
or you just make it like a full test, and it's like, okay, it's like 70 degrees out, and everybody has to wear like a full dry suit, hoodie, everything, and see how long they can go with just full max out sweat job. Yeah, there's a lot that could happen there.
and then
Oh yeah.
in races there's like 8 stations, so maybe there is somebody like handing you like food and but can you describe on that day like the type of condition out there, the waves, and then if that was like turns out it was ideal, or do you think it could be better?
Yeah, definitely could be better. So the night before when I did the 45 minutes, the swell period was pretty low, was sort of 9 seconds. So there's pretty constant sweat sets. There wasn't any big lulls between them. The next morning, the swell jumped to about 13 seconds. And I sort of got down there and had a look at it, and you could tell the sets were still there, but they were just slower. They just weren't as frequent. And that's the issue with when you're trying to do the long pumps. If you need to pump a long way out, that's what taxes you. Your heart rate goes up and it's just too hard to get it back down. So it ended up being, I had the decision in the morning to ride either the Axis 1099 or the Armstrong 1325. I think both similar size in terms of pump, all that sort of stuff, but the 1325 was quicker. And with the longer period swell, it moves faster. And I knew there's going to be moments where you need to go out further.
Yeah.
And with the quicker wing, you can ride them back much easier. You don't have, occasionally with the 1099, I might have to pump just to stay with it because it just doesn't have that speed. So that swell period jump was a big factor and it also changed how quite often, if you ride one all the way in and, say it's 100 meters to get back out and you can't see anything coming, you've got to make that call to try and do some little laps on the inside. Because if you pump that far out and nothing comes, it's almost game over. So you just, pump maybe 3 waves out and just grab a little one that's sort of enough that you can just get a little rest and just do a couple of little laps. And then once you see something, then go all the way out, grab that one and get a good rest all the way back in. So there's a lot of luck with the waves. I think shorter period swell that's a little bit messy. If you've had it blowing onshore all night and then you get a light sort of offshore in the morning, it just having all those wedges, all that energy a bit mixed up is a lot easier. Those long ground swells, although yes, look great to carve on, for conserving energy, they're terrible because those lulls in between that's over. Yeah.
All right, so let's quick cover exact gear you used, and then I want to go into one other question, which I think is spectacular because you're one of the most knowledgeable people, and I've watched some videos, and I wanted to dive into a couple tips, simple tips to save energy, pump efficiently. Some of these things you mentioned earlier, riding with the mast high, some of these things, but you have some really powerful tips that is good for anybody on a foil. And I want to hit those after, but the gear you rode during this day, what was the board, foil mast size, wings, all that kind of stuff, to just kind of give people a general idea?
Yeah. So basically all Armstrong gear. I rode a 4.0 Armstrong board. I ran a longer mast. So I had the choice between the 72 centimeter and the 85. The 72 does pump better. Shorter mast, it keeps the foil up closer to the surface. It's also, little less flex being shorter. So the shorter mast would have been easier, but I just knew that amount of time on foil, you're going to make mistakes. And the longer mast just gave me that little extra room to make mistakes where there's, quite a big tip breach, anything. So longer mast than just a standard 60 centimeter fuse, which I think is probably around where most brands consider standard these days. And then front wing was the Armstrong HA 1325. I did get a new mast probably like 2 weeks before, which in the past I didn't ride the 1325 too much because I found it just had too much flex. If it kind of all loaded up, it seemed to just roll and go one way, whereas I got a new mast and it was significantly stiffer and it made all the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, in the past, actually, it's interesting. My calves were usually what burnt out first doing long pump runs. And it was just more that if the wing does something, you're correcting with your toes, kind of that quick reaction. And my calves would just go. And it was interesting when I did that 45-minute run the night before, didn't even feel the calves. So the mast definitely played a big part in that. And then tailwing there's a guy in Western Australia, Chris, I think he's Crisp OG on Instagram. And he makes some of the most unique tails I've ever seen. Amazing foil sections. Like if you're into geeking out about that stuff, he's got one of the most unique tail. It looks like a cane tail, just a standard G10 thing, but you touch it in the flesh and it's completely different foil section and some wild stuff going in there, but really low stall speed and really fast and efficient tailwing. So it's kind of the perfect combo, really.
And now, so the questions I wanted to hit was one you mentioned, which is just for any foiler out there. I think I'll let you kind of hit your points because you got some really spectacular ones, and I'll kind of guide you into it because I've heard a lot of your stuff, and I think you're so incredibly knowledgeable. And one is, the higher up your foil is to the surface of the water on any little piece of chop or any bit of energy, you can catch that lift or give you a break, we'll call it, give you the glide. And if you're lower, sometimes you just miss it. And a lot of people struggle with that. And then the other thing that I just will guide into is you mentioned something, bringing your stance a lot narrower to change. So you're not so back foot heavy or front foot heavy, whatever your foil's set up at. But, most people burn out their back foot. And then the last thing I want to tap into, and you can totally dive into these at your, how you want to explain it, is, pumping your board at a very level, flat pump versus this movement that everybody thinks it's this up and down pump. So I'd love for you to share your insight to people to just basic foiling in general, whatever it is, behind the boat, wing, kite, whatever, or if you're going 2 hours and 30 minutes on a foil, what's your lowdown tips and tricks for everybody, Oskar?
Yeah. So pumping's an interesting one. I've had this conversation with many people, and I think, I came from a surf background, so quite a wide stance. You're quite a powerful, strong, grounded stance, but when it comes to pumping, it's an ongoing kind of endurance. It's like just doing a heap of squats, really. And so there was, we had this thought, I saw other guys doing it. They started getting narrower stance, and then kind of thought about it. I was like, if you ever do squats at the gym, you don't stand with a big wide surf stance, you stand narrow. And it's the same thing, if you go and do a box jump, something like that, if you run up, and if you're going to do a hurdle, if you run up to something and go to jump as high as you can, your feet pretty well land shoulder width apart. Like that's your most powerful sort of stance. And that kind of leans into something that I guess a lot of people think about with their foiling is a lot of people focus on the pushing as hard as they can down. You sort of see them, they've got a fast cadence, they just push. Whereas I think changing that mindset to more being jump up as high as you can. At the end of every pump, you see good pumpers, the back foot comes, they're up on their toes at the bottom of the pump. Every time they really jump up and they get on their toes. And that's, I think, it's such a powerful change in mindset to start thinking about jumping up as high as you can on the mast rather than focusing on the down pump. A little bit like a skateboard ollie, kind of jump it up as high as you can, because the efficiency that you get on foil and pumping up high on the mast is, we've all been there, whether you're winging or not, and you get a little bit too high, all of a sudden you accelerate, everything becomes easier. So staying up high like that, take notes.
Seriously, people, this is huge knowledge.
Yeah. So Kiahi was saying the exact same thing where riding a foil in wave. Kiahi has a really amazing style, and he's able to carry speed through his turn where most of us would do a turn like he is and then have to pump to actually recover your speed because you messed up your turn and now you lost all of your speed. And so he was saying a huge game changer is the stance and riding your foil more like a long burn rather than a short burn. Do you think can you explain, since you come from surfing, the difference between carving on your short burn to carving on a foil? Can you explain that difference?
Yeah, I definitely see where he's coming from with that. I've experimented heaps with it lately with, not just narrowing the stance for the pump, but also riding on a wave. And it's quite an interesting feeling in that normally when you're surfing, you drive with your shoulders, you lean, drive it around, and sort of the foil follows and sort of then comes back underneath you. Whereas if you have the narrow stance, everything starts coming from the hips. And you see it with him as well. You see it with Kane DeWild, another great, and Zane Westwood. They foil very narrow stance, and it all sort of happens with the hips. So when you see them turn, their body stays quite upright, and the foil moves underneath them. So you often see them, if they're coming straight at you on a wave, or you can see some front-on footage, they're carving, but they're upright. Their body sort of stays quite central, and everything underneath, you see how they sort of really tweak their turns out, wrap them right around, but the body stays pretty, momentum's moving forward, all that sort of weight, upper body's moving forward, and the foil's just whipping around underneath them. So I'm not as good at it as they are, obviously, but it's definitely that movement of the hips. And it was the same when you're doing the long pump runs. I can kind of lock my legs out a bit and rest. And instead of, if you're kind of knees are bent, a little bit tense, you're controlling the pitch with just one foot, the other foot. Whereas if you lock your legs out, keep your stance narrow, you just move your hips forward and back just to control that stance. And it's a massive load off on the legs to not be using your quads to kind of push each foot down and just to inch your hips further forward and back. And so there's a lot of control and sort of nuances you can do with just moving your hips around with that narrow stance.
Yeah, and everybody listening in, definitely take a look at Oscar's stuff, because I watched a little video on something he mentioned as well that I think is super impactful, and that is he's actually moved, sometimes pumping, he'll move his front foot a little further back, and then what that does, and he can explain it more, but it seems like more of a center push pump, so you're not fully loading one or the other and burning one or another out, so it's more of a all at once. And when I say push, the goal is obviously that lift, because the lift is what creates everything up for it to glide. And then you're almost trying to just lift, glide, glide is the goal. Yet when you look at somebody, it's like, they're like, rah, 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 rah. It looks like they're just pushing down. But how would you kind of explain that one a little more, Oskar?
Yeah. I think we've all had it. Whenever we learned to pump, it was the back leg. The back leg just burnt out. And you were just going, how, why? I can't load the front leg. And so for me, it was, sliding the front foot back. So obviously you're working towards that narrow stance, but if you just bring your back foot forward, you've got too much weight and you're just going to nosedive. And the other hard thing is, yes, you want to move your front foot back, but the board's always lifting at the nose. So your back foot, you can have weight on your front foot and easily just slide it back and forward. But the front foot, if you try and lift your front foot, the board just lifts. So I always say just kind of heel toe, just slide it back. And so you don't need to go too far. You can go just a couple centimeters and you'll notice how much extra pressure goes onto your front foot. So every time I kick off a wave, first thing I do, front foot comes back, then I bring my back foot to where I want. And if I'm in the surf, when you're on a wave, same thing, you tend to be driving off your back foot. So your back leg burns anyway. So on the pump out, I try to be much heavier on the front foot. So I'll bring my front foot quite a way back. So I'm probably 60, 70% weight on my front foot on the pump and the rest on my back foot. And that just really, gives your back leg time to rest, and you can just work your front leg a little bit more. So
top secret information, that's right there.
So what I'm thinking in my head right now is that I have to listen to this over and over. So for anybody that has the same idea, you can, it will be available as a podcast, but for sure, listen to it 10 times. That's what I'm going to do for sure. Now, how did you got to this point? Tell us about your progression, getting into foiling. Was there several stage or stages, or you got to this point, and then to break the ceiling again, you had to do this. Can you describe your progression?
Yeah. So I didn't start foiling. I really got into it during COVID. It was sort of we're all kind of bunkered down, and had a friend that had a foil, so kind of learnt to foil. And honestly, it was at the time of sort of the low aspects. I had a Nash thrust and got to the point where I could pump out for 3 waves, and it was just even the idea of the 4th, I was just that cooked. So you just shattered. But I also didn't understand that you could really turn them. It was all about linking waves. And so I honestly kind of just moved on. I just went, just like, it's so much work. I get 2-3 waves. I'm not really getting too much out of it. So I actually stopped for quite a while, and there was a guy that approached me who lived down our way, and he sort of said, "Oh, I got a friend. We're going to go for foil. You should come." And I was like, "Oh, not that interested." And he's like, "Come on, like just come have a look." And it was a guy, Jeremy Wilmot, Ocean Pixels on Instagram. He's a phenomenal foiler as well as big wave surfer. And we went down to wave out the front of his place, and it was like he ripped the bag out of it. Not just, he was pumping for 4 or 5 waves, but full roundhouse cup. It was amazing to watch. And after that, I just went, oh my God, like this is what I want to do. And I just went, I started making my own foils. I just went like, yes, we're doing it. I just went to the stuff that I kind of wanted just didn't seem to be available, particularly at my weight. Like I'm only 68 kilos or 150 pounds. And at the time there were big GoFoil wings, Axis wings. I was just like, these just aren't what I kind of want. I want something smaller. So I started making my own foils, and I just got so into it. So yeah, in the end, I realized that I couldn't make a foil as good as a manufacturer could. Don't even try. Those guys.
We've all been there.
Oh mate, they're way above what you can do at home. So I got an Armstrong setup, and that pretty much started the pump obsession. And it was just about that, working out how to maximize your energy, not waste anything. And the worst thing you're probably going to hear about it is you got to spend time on foil. That muscle memory is everything with being able to relax. You can pump out to one wave and sort of ride it back, but until that muscle memory, those sort of reflexes are there, you're wasting energy. You're tense. You're not quite sure what's coming. And it does. It just takes time. Whether it's, I think e-foils I haven't tried one, but must be a great way to just dial in those muscle memories, the pitch control, all that sort of stuff. And until you've got that muscle memory, you're tense, you're wasting energy. And so I think there's definitely, you've just got to put your time in, but then there are the little secrets and the gems and the hints that really make you progress. But after that, it was,
he is an e-foil. He just goes. He's 2.5 hours. He's like,
I mean, I don't know. I don't think there is
energy.
There is not an e-foil that exists that can ride as long as Oskar.
That's it. He just blew the doors off all foiling, just straight up right there. I love it.
Yeah, no. And then after that, it was the high aspect era. So I kind of was right, but I was getting into it right before the big high aspects sort of came out. And so yeah, it was the Armstrong 1125. I jumped on that, and it was just like, you could go forever. And I think, first or second surf, I went from maybe 5 or 8 minutes, I think I was around, to 20. And it was easy. Not easy, but it was significantly easy. And you could start to see that, like, this is
20 is easy if you're doing 2.5 hours. So I got it. I respect that in some way, form, or fashion.
Something for me, like, I don't, and a lot of people out there are in the same position where, like, we don't always have access to waves. And like you said, time practicing is critical. But, if you just don't get to like surf that often, you don't get that time. So for me, something that was a game changer that maybe will be helping other people out there as well was to do some dock starts. And that you can do any day, and you are on totally flat water, and you can really like improve your technique. And that has helped me so much. Have you ever like done any of that, like flat water, just flat water, like pumping to like help you in the waves?
I've actually only done it twice now. I've done it now once at the hatchery. It was because we have waves, it was sort of just not something that I really focused on. And we don't have it, for us, we'd have to actually, drive away from the coast to find a dock.
Yeah.
So it was actually a longer drive to get to a dock than it was to go for a surf. So, but it is, I went down at the hatchery 2 days ago. Oh, sorry, not the hatchery, at Hood River, at the main event site, and just went off the dock there just to get a feel for it again. And it is, you have so much time to dial in equipment. Out in the surf, it's a lot of work. You got to come in, maybe you want to put just change things. The dock, you can dial it in, do a lap, change a shim, see how, then do another one. What did that change? Did I add more lift? You can really fine tune a lot of things in your gear, but then also your technique, once you're comfortable running off, getting on and starting to go, you can really start to change things in your technique, whether it is moving your foot forward and back. And I think in the surf, it's a dynamic environment. There's energy coming from everywhere. There's a lot going on. So it's not often the most stable environment, whereas flat water, usually anyway, there's no current. It's just, you can really focus on just trying particular things. And I think it's like a golf swing. They always say, don't have 5 things in your mind, just have 1, maximum 2. And it's the same with a dock start. Once you're comfortable getting on, try just change 1 thing, see what it does, and then keep progressing, keep dialing that in. So yeah, flat water is a great way to get into it more, I think.
My big question that I think this has been like the one that I've been very excited to ask, because you came from a surfing background. You're obviously a surfer, very talented, very skilled. My question is, 1, where you live, and 2, for what you think of the future. Are you now looking at foiling like I really like to foil because I can carve and I can ride a wave for so long in a day that it's kind of, I'll surf a little less? Or are you still into the surf? Like, I'm not saying all surfers are going to be surfers. You're never going to change that. I think it's one of the most spectacular things in the world. But I'm just saying, like, did you see, like, in your friends around you, were they like, hey, like, you're foiling now? Like, is that really cool? Like, are they all starting to be like, I'm in, just like you? Or what do you see in there?
Yeah. So of my friends, I think I probably surf still more than most of them that got into foiling anyway. It's still a love. And I think it's still a special feeling because you are, foiling, you can go out and connect multiple ways. I think it's a whole different thing, really. But surfing, I think it's so hard to replace getting barreled. It's such a good thing. And like where we are, we're lucky to have a lot of quite heavy slab waves, great barrels. So it's still, when it's firing for a surf, I'll still surf. So at the moment, I'm probably still 50-50.
Yeah.
And I think foiling for me is another reason to always be in the water. Before it was, it's not great. Do I go in? Do I not? Whereas now it's like, it's onshore wind and you're like, I can go downwinding. I can go winging. It never ends. I think the hardest thing now is just what do you do? What do you do? It's like, you can go up, you show up and it's like, you're looking at it off the headland, you're like, I could go to a downwind run. It's like, oh, but it looks sick for winging over there. And you're just like, oh, but it'd be small and good in there for a pro. And it's just, it drives you nuts. It is just, and that's what, like, to me, that's what foiling is. Like, you can always be in the water. If it is completely flat, go dock start.
Yeah.
There is always a reason to get in the water. And I think,
how about barrels, your slabs? Are you feeling that yet? I mean, some of the guys over in Tahiti and things are starting to stack up. I mean, people are going to be deep in those barrels on foils. Is that something you're looking at or no?
I actually had this discussion with Jeremy Wilmot, that same guy. He tows Cape Solander, where they held the Red Bull Cape Fear event in Sydney.
Wow. Yeah.
And I mean, seeing what he's doing on a foil is ridiculous. Same as the guys in Tahiti, But the sort of thing that we sort of came to, he towed it that wave. I think it ended up in the last issue of the Foiling magazine, and it was a phenomenal piece. But he sort of said that he's like, you can't slow it down. The pace of the barrel goes at a certain speed, and as soon as you're on a foil, and the closer you are in, the more it's drawing, the more energy there is. It's just, you can't slow it down. So it's, your only option really is to go
that way
there. Yeah. Mate, imagine the back doors you could get through that. Yeah. So, maybe that's where, that's where we kind of look at it with the surf lens going, these are the waves we tow or we paddle for barrel surfing.
Mm-hmm.
And that on a surfboard, it goes at the pace that you ride at a surfboard. But maybe those crazy fast freight trains, maybe that's what we should be looking for. And, we need to have the foil, rather than look at it with the surf lens and try and fit the foil into that wave, look at it with a foil lens and be like, what sort of waves will work with this? So, and I think that's
I'll
the
let
same.
You deal with that one.
I can't think of anything more horrifying than being tumbled with a foil in a. Yeah, nah.
Yeah, that would be scary. So in terms of like foils, like with everything that's out there right now, do you see or what would be your idea? Is your ideal foil exist or or it doesn't exist yet, or is there like limitation, like it can't be too high aspect, otherwise you can't turn or whatever? Like, what would be, whether it exists or not, what would be your dream ideal foil that you think would be perfect?
Ooh. I mean, I guess it's discipline dependent. If I look at it with a prone lens, probably, riding waves, I almost don't think it exists yet. I think we came out of, I guess, what is now sort of low aspects, which were kind of surf wings at the time. They didn't pump too well, a lot of lift. And then the high aspects came, things around, say, a 10 aspect ratio. And like you said, that there's a limit on the span on how it loses that surfy feel. And it's been quite interesting, I think, we all were looking for numbers to quantify what a foil did, whether it was aspect ratio, span, area, all that sort of stuff. We wanted to sort of go, all right, try to get the best idea that we can of what this foil is going to do. And I think it worked for a certain amount of time, but now with these high aspects, you see how important the foil section is in them. Like you compare something like the Lift 90. I mean, on paper, it's a tiny foil. It almost shouldn't work as a prone foil, but the amount of camber that's in that section, what they've done with it, it is so much lift, and it works really well even in small surf for big guys. I mean, the Lift 120 was the first one, and it was a game changer. I mean, that totally changed what we thought about with high aspects. And so I still think, it makes it really difficult though when you sort of add the foil section in to look at the stats or the numbers on a wing and really get a good sense of it. So for me, just with the surf, I think the high aspects, they're hard to turn. They go one way. It takes a lot to roll it back over just because of that wide span. So I think bringing the span down to maybe something like 800 mil, I think still keeps that sort of surfier feel. And then maybe something right in between where we were with those sort of maybe 5 to 6 aspect ratio, and then the 10s, something around that 7 to 8 mark, I think will be kind of perfect. And then probably a foil section that can stay with the pace of the wave. For me, the high aspects, because they're so fast, force you into quite a horizontal line when you're on the wave. You go out to the shoulder, and although it's such a nice feeling, those super powered up calves coming back are amazing. I also want to sort of be a bit more vertical, a bit more critical with the lines that I'm taking on a wave. And I think with those wings, with the glide and speed they have, you go straight to draw that line and you just end up out in the flats waiting to wash off speed. And it just goes too quick. And eventually bottom turn and you can do it. But you can tell that's just not where they fit into a wave. So I definitely think a good mid aspect that can stay with the pace of the wave and plenty of lift, but still decent pump. I think that's the unicorn that we're all searching for. So what about you guys? I mean, you guys have, I know Florida's very different waves, quite small and sort of low period, but what do you see as the ideal wing?
I think you're spot on. I think we haven't, I think, all the foils and all these high aspects that come off aviation and wings and certain, everything's been sort of done and it's out there. It's now putting it together to make it work for whatever the conditions are. I would say, I've been riding the 90 that you mentioned, and the roll and the turn absolutely is mind blowing. Not to mention it's very efficient. There's a lot there. Now, I agree there's more there for everybody and there's more to come. But Florida, obviously, it's really no waves and really just it's small, a lot of less lift. And, tapping back to the things that you mentioned, where the higher up on the foil, the more lift you get, the easier it is to glide, shorter mass, makes it easier for people to be on that swell, be in the power, really stay with it, versus the longer the mass, you're just a hair low in the water, you're not quite on the energy. I think there's a huge room for this to go. But what I really wanted to just hit real quick was Oskar. First, I want to say thank you. This has been just mind blowing for everybody. I promise you this is for us for sure. But even better is, I just want to share this because we always try to hit something very powerful for everybody out there. And this is it. If you take a look at this interview with Oskar and his insight, his knowledge, his research, his just full drive to learn everything about foiling. This is what makes somebody so spectacular at something in life, is putting the time in, learning everything you can learn about it, learning all the foil, everything about every wing thing, ocean. This is what makes people so spectacular and good at their trade. And I just want to say that because there's a lot of people that are learning that are like, oh, Oscar's a perfect example. He tried foiling in the very beginning and said, yeah, it was cool. Yeah, that was it. I'm out. And then he got rejuvenized, and it, you just don't give up, man. There's so much there that is just there for you to grab. And I think, your biggest message, I think that was awesome, was foiling gives you the opportunity to be in Mother Nature or be in the water whenever you want. And,
Yeah.
and if it's only a Saturday at 2:00, because that's my time and that's all I get in a week, you're going to be able to do something, whether it's kite, foil, wing, prone, whatever. But to me, that's the most powerful thing ever, dude. And you just inspired so many. I mean, I still struggle to get to a couple waves or whatever. And the fact that you went for over 2.5 hours is just like mind blowing to me.
It's anybody's dream. I mean, anybody that's into like foiling or like prawn foiling is dreaming about this, what you've done. But something very exciting, somebody commented, Brody commented, he's the Cabrina foil designer and he's in Hood River. So I don't know if you've met with him, but Brody is amazing. And he said you should try the X930 Mark II new foil from Cabrina. And I don't know, I think it might fit some of like what you have described earlier with like something more of like a mid aspect. So something to keep in mind. But yeah, Brody is amazing. He's always ripping on foils. And he designed great foils. So if you have a chance to meet up with him, he's a really cool guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've had a few downwind runs together. He's clever cookie, knows his stuff about foils, and got to see some of the stuff he's working on. But I didn't get to see the X series. I think I saw he was down at the dock when we went down the other day and had a 2100.
Yeah.
And the effort he put into his pump was just, it was nothing. He was barely working and just kept going. So I'll have to keep an eye out for that. Was it the X930?
Yeah, X930. Yeah.
All right.
So Oscar, we want you to share with everybody out there, if you had one bit of motivation, inspiration, anything to just give anybody that's struggling, maybe they're struggling on foiling, maybe they're struggling in life, what would be a message? Because you obviously have incredible positivity, inspiration, anything's possible. You see that in you. What would be your little insight to give to people out there?
As simple as it is, get in the water. I mean, I do it every day. If you get in the water in the morning, your day is that much better. And I think it's just the presence. It is, there's so much. We're on a podcast now chatting, online. It's in an online environment. All this stuff, it takes you away from being present. And I think that being present is one of the most powerful things. And getting in the water, whether, that split second moment where your mind, when you're paddling for a wave, is 100% focused on catching that wave. There is so much going on. How the board's like, your mind is just present. And even if it's one wave you caught for that split second moment, that sets you up for the rest of the day. And I think just get in the water. I think for mentally, physically, everything benefits from it. And it's that simple. And that's where foiling, mate, we don't have an excuse not to be in the water anymore. So just get in the water. That's it.
I love it. I think it's brilliant, and we apologize that we're not in the water doing this interview with everybody here, because that's coming in time.
That's what I was saying at the beginning. We should have done it while you are pumping around.
Yeah. Oh, Hood River, we could have done a downwind run and just live downwind run. That would have been awesome.
I love it.
Well, Oskar, yeah, you are amazing. I'm like so inspired. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I really hope we get to like meet in person one day.
Yeah.
And we can, get a session or something. I mean, let's make it happen. But is the clinic you are doing in Hood River, did you do it or is it coming today?
It is in an hour and a half.
All right. Well, everybody out there, if you are in Hood River in an hour and a half, this is your chance to learn from the man himself. So don't miss that opportunity.
He's literally going to pump from that desk right there. He's going to pump to the next site. might be an hour and a half, but that's nothing because he's done 2 hours and 30 minutes. So it's nothing. It's just a warm up for him. All right, we're gonna jump into our patron show. Look, Oskar, absolutely inspiring. Thank you so much. We can't wait to see what your future has in store because you're obviously tapping on some different levels of what's possible. And that's what makes these sports just run and grow. And we just can't thank you more for sharing this message and sharing your time, sharing your knowledge with everybody. And obviously I took notes, so I'm good. But we'll rewatch this about 400 times. So we appreciate you.
No, awesome, guys. Awesome to be here. And yeah, to everyone else out there, just keep going with the stoke. Share it. Don't get your egos in there. Just help anyone else out there. If you got some tips for them, just share it. We're all learning on this journey, and it's still going. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Oskar.
Oskar, spot on. And make sure anybody in Hood River go see Oskar in an hour and a half, and he'll blow your mind. On that note, everybody have a wonderful Thursday. We love you. Thank you so much, and thank you again, Oskar.
Thanks, guys.